Shadow of the Colossus, Demon's Souls. If you played those remasters and thought, this feels right, not just graphically, something deeper than that. Like your hands remember the controls. Like you're not thinking about how to move, you're just moving. The same way you did the first time. That nostalgia in your fingers, that sense that someone understood what the original actually felt like. That was Bluepoint. That's what they did. They took PlayStation's greatest games and made sure a new generation could play them the way they deserved to be played. Sony shut them down. You probably didn't know their name even if you played both games. That's kind of the point. Point intended. Bluepoint didn't just rebuild the visuals. They made sure the feel survived. And that's harder than it sounds. Because a lot of what makes those games feel the way they do isn't in the graphics. It's in the weight of the controls, the camera angles, the way the world responds to you. Things that could look like technical limitations were actually artistic choices. Bluepoint understood that. They preserved those things, used the original constraints as part of what made the remaster feel authentic, not quirks to patch out. Shadow of the Colossus, rebuilt from the ground up. Demon's Souls. The PS5 launch title, the game Sony chose to prove the new hardware was worth buying. 92 on Metacritic, and most people who played either of them had no idea who made it possible. That's a specific skill. It's not glamorous, it doesn't put your name on the box, but it's the reason those games exist for people who couldn't play them the first time, or who didn't have the money to buy the original at an exorbitant price on eBay. Sony acquired Bluepoint in 2021. They bought them specifically to have that capability in-house, to own the ability to bring their legacy titles back with care. And I remember thinking at the time, this makes sense. PlayStation has one of the richest libraries in gaming history. Having a studio that know how to honor that library, that's not a luxury, that's how you protect what you've built. 3 years later, Bluepoint is closed. 3 years. Whatever they said Bluepoint was worth in 2021, they decided in 2025 it wasn't worth keeping. The capability they bought is gone. And the next time Sony wants to bring back a legacy title, they'll be doing it without the people who proved it could be done right. To understand what happened to Bluepoint, you have to go back further. Because this isn't about one studio, this is about what PlayStation became. And who let it happen? Japan Studio, the division that made Ico, the original Shadow of the Colossus, Gravity Rush, Ape Escape, gone in 2021. And right now, in 2026, there's a Gravity Rush movie in development. The IP is valuable enough to adapt into a film. Sony closed the team that built it before they even understood what they had. If Japan Studio was still open, they would be the ones developing that property. Instead, the IP belongs to a company that no longer has the people who understood it. And then Bluepoint, the studio that remade two of Japan Studio's most important titles, is also gone. But to understand why, you have to look at what happened to PlayStation itself. Shuhei Yoshida was the head of PlayStation's first-party studios, the person most directly responsible for the creative identity behind God of War, Uncharted, Bloodborne, The Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. He was pushed out in 2019, not because he failed, but because Jim Ryan asked him to do things he considered absurd, and he refused. Ryan sidelined him. Under Jim Ryan, PlayStation stopped being a Japanese company in everything but name. The headquarters moved from Tokyo to San Mateo, California. Japan was deprioritized at every level. Reports at the time said Sony Japan had been sidelined even from the PlayStation 5's own launch, shut out from decisions about their own hardware. The company that built its identity on Japanese craft, Japanese creative vision, and Japanese game design was being run as an American entertainment business. Japan's studio closed in 2021 under Jim Ryan's PlayStation. The closure everyone attributed to restructuring was the Japanese creative soul of PlayStation being quietly dismantled. Jim Ryan retired in 2024 and Sony Japan came back. Hiroki Totoki, Sony Group's CFO based in Tokyo, took interim control of PlayStation. A new structure was put in place. Japanese leadership was back in the room. Sony Japan won the corporate battle, but the studios are already gone. You can put Japanese executives back in charge of an institution that has already been hollowed out. Yoshida is gone. Japan Studio is gone. Bluepoint is gone. The creative infrastructure that made PlayStation worth fighting for. Dismantled between 2019 and 2025, while the corporate structure was being contested. PlayStation used to mean something specific. A certain quality, a certain craft, a certain willingness to make things that didn't follow the template. The person who protected that was removed first. Then the studios followed. And by the time the right people got back into the building, there was nothing left to protect. Sony Japan won the building back. But they're not done fighting. Neil Druckmann is still inside it, and the next game designed to divide is already in development. Sony is trying to get back on their feet, but that's a video for another time. Sony acquired Bluepoint to protect what PlayStation meant. 3 years later, Bluepoint is closed. The Demon Souls and Shadow of the Colossus remakes exist. The studio that made them doesn't. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm the Broken Dream Axe. Don't forget, be righteous and stay passionate.